So this has recently become one of my sort of favourite quotes or memes. Is this suffer now, suffer later? I think about it a lot in the context of working out, which is how you normally see the meme taken. But I've since thought it's more than just your approach to working out, your approach to dieting. It's far more than that. It's a generalized approach to life, and it's very much an approach I think that people must take if they want to have connection with people. And that's not to say staying in abusive friendships or relationships sort of way. The way in which I mean it is more just, trying to reach out and trying to organise things with your friends, because it can be difficult. I was thinking about this recently. I was chatting to an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen in many years, and then we were chatting about how things are so convenient in many ways. There are so many aspects of life that are more convenient than there used to be, and that actually has the effect of making it harder to socialize. So in lots of videos, I'll make this sort of comparison. The ability to socialize and the ability to have relationships it is like a muscle or like a set of muscles. So in the same way that if you go at the gym on the regular and then you stop for months, if you go back, you will not be able to push or pull or throw, depending what exercise you're doing, the same way you did when you were doing it on the regular. And socializing is very much the same. So when I talk about the suffering is that idea of doing reps, so to speak, social reps, and pushing through resistance, whatever that resistance may be, you know. Because sometimes the resistance may just be like, oh, your friend hasn't responded to you, and a lot of the time that's just because they're busy or they forgot, and they didn't forget because they hated you. They just forgot because they have a lot of stuff going on in their life. Maybe they've had a really hard time at work, or they're dealing with some family thing. So, or I mean, this is one that happens to me as an autistic person a lot. Well, maybe it's not an autistic thing, but I don't know. It could be. Is sometimes they type out a reply and just forget to hit send. That's particularly embarrassing at work, and yeah, and sometimes it happens with WhatsApps as well. So there's lots of reasons. So if you're going to only ever do one rep of sending out a text, then it's like that person maybe isn't as valuable a friend to you. And maybe you don't want to make that effort. But if they are a valued friend, text them maybe a couple of times about a big meet up if there's lots of you going out, or if there's a regular sort of thing you're looking to do and you happen to be in their area on the regular, I'll always give them a shout. And sometimes they won't be able to, and sometimes they will. There's friends of mine. If I'm ever taking my son near their house, I'll quite often give them a text. Quite often when I go to this particular park, there's not much for it. It's often a thing I decide on the day, and then I send them a text, and sometimes they get back to me on the day, and sometimes they don't. And most of the time they get back to me on the day, they themselves already have plans, or they're away, or they're just busy in another way. But on occasion they've joined me. But I'm willing to do that rep for that friend. I'm willing to push and do those reps of sending the text and looking in on them and texting them, and then yeah, sometimes you might feel as though the rep isn't worth it. You're not seeing the results. There's a friend who I text on the regular, and they're often quite busy, too busy to meet. And sometimes, yeah, I might feel a bit discouraged in a way, in the same way that, again, sorry if working out isn't a metaphor that everybody understands. Please let me know in the comments if it's something that's not accessible, and I'll try and find things that are more appropriate to everybody else. But yeah, sometimes you're hitting the reps and you might not feel the pump, or you might not see you're like, oh, where's I've done a few rounds of sit ups in the last few days. Where's the six pack? Sometimes you might not see the results you expect as quick as you expect, as often as you expect, but they're still there. So this friend, I've been trying to get in touch with them a lot recently, and just they've not been able to come out or get, and they've been slow to get back to me. And then I was like, all right, okay, what's this? I was starting to think, are we on the outs? It's just sometimes people grow apart, and that is okay to a degree. And then suddenly I got a call off them the other day, and they're like, oh, you're in the house, and I was like, well, actually, no, I'm not, but unfortunately, and they were looking to drop off a wedding invite, so I've been invited to their wedding, and then they were hoping to drop it off in person and catch up. Uh, they weren't able to because I was out, but they dropped off the wedding invite, and then we're going to the wedding in a few months. So so sometimes it's a case of, yeah, you do sort of sometimes have to keep pushing and occasionally bother your friend. Again, always disclaimer is like, make sure that the level of bothering is not sliding into harassment. You don't want to do that. It really depends on how good a friend you are, how recent a friend you are, the context in which you know each other, and also what you're inviting them to. Just a wee disclaimer, as always. And again, that point, is the disclaimer is real in the sense that, yeah, be careful, don't overstep the mark, but equally, some people might be worried that a couple of texts is harassment. Uh, when it's not, it's a couple of texts to somebody that, especially if you've known them for several years, a couple of texts in a row, or even dare I say, calling them using the voice app on the mini computer you have in your hand. If you happen to be nearby, I think calling them is appropriate. But that's the thing, is because people are so used to certain forms of communication and certain technology now, that might seem a bit OTT, but it's really not if they're a friend that you've known for quite a while. So, and you used to, yeah, if you've seen them, if you've known them for a long time, it's absolutely fine. But going back to the point at the start of the video, it's very much in the ways that, yeah, because things are very frictionless now, that resistance becomes harder. So sticking with the gym metaphor, if you're not used to working your muscles, then it is hard. So in the same way that if you've not been to the gym in a while and you try and push big weight, you're going to suffer and you're not going to be able to do it. It's the same. So I was talking about to my friend recently, like, oh, in many ways, social media is great, and then a lot of apps that are very convenient are great in many ways, but they do sometimes have a downside if you don't use them properly, or just become, convenience is the key, and you don't really think. So the ability to, used to, if you want to go to a takeaway, quite often you had to call, and then the phones were very, very busy, or the person who would take the calls, was maybe doing other stuff around the kitchen. So if it was a takeaway quite close by and you've called a couple of times, you're like, oh, well, they're not answering, let me just walk the 5 minutes. And then, you're in the takeaway and you actually have to talk to the person, behind the counter. And then, occasionally especially before mobile phones were so commonplace, and there was so much to do on your phone. There was a while where even if you had a mobile phone, there wasn't much to do on it. You could maybe browse the internet a bit, but there wasn't social media in the same way. There wasn't Facebook or Instagram to infinitely scroll, or YouTube to watch for hours. You'd often actually end up, speaking to people in the takeaway sort of waiting area. And then again, and even you're like, oh, people may be like, oh, well, that isn't quite the same as not socializing, but it builds a whole picture of just, and it's the whole milieu, the whole just atmosphere and I don't know atmosphere maybe or landscape or ecosystem. It's all ecosystem. Yes, let's go with ecosystem. It's the ecosystem of everything must be smooth, zero resistance, frictionless. It's like, well, no, that's not always good. It's not a good way to live because, you know, if you want to have relationships and friendships with other people, there will be friction. You might want to go somewhere at a certain time, but they can't make it because they have an appointment. And it's like, okay, well, let's try a later time in the day, or let's try a different day, or it's like, oh yeah, well, I can't make it, but I do want to go to a cafe, so let's not go to a cafe here, let's go this other part of the city instead. It's like other people do have their own schedules and and also beyond that, their own fears and dreams and just things to do, things distracting them. So yeah, it's like, oh, so actually having to maintain relationships and friendships with other people, you will encounter resistance because there'll be things you want to do at certain times in certain ways and the other people don't. So you do need to sort of just work out and negotiate that resistance and just get used to it. So, that ability to negotiate with friends, that is you doing the reps, so to speak, the friendship reps, the relationship reps. So yeah, so that's my thoughts for this week. Is resistance will happen, but resistance is good if you push through it and keep up the reps. So text your friends. Don't worry about texting them too much within reason. And, maybe again, actually call them on the phone. And if they call you, pick up. And if you're not in a position to pick up, instead of texting them back, call back. So that's my thoughts, my advice, and I suppose at the end, my challenge and my call to action for this week. So thank you very much. I've been the Scottistics Dad, and if you want, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll do my best to read it and take the feedback on board.